F sharp, A sharp, revisited.
Hello everyone and welcome to F sharp A sharp Revisited, the music review podcast where every now and then we let our hair down and we decide we're not going to stress about the new music releases and we're just going to talk about some classic albums, maybe a very enjoyable live show, see what happens.
No, yeah, we're not doing that this week though, are we? I mean, that's only sometimes.
No, only sometimes. I am Joe, the music critic, reasonable person, and with me with a cinquième saison is Nick.
I won't pretend to know what that means.
A fifth season in French,
Oh.
referencing Harmonium's best album, Si on avait besoin d'une cinquième saison.
You lost me.
I'm going to have to make you listen to it sometime now, Nick.
I'm looking forward to it.
We do actually have some classic albums to talk
because
about.
we looked at the upcoming music that's coming out and thought, I do not care about any of this particularly. I mean, there's the new ASAP Rocky album, but that's about it, and even then I'm not convinced it's going to be any good. I haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah.
It came out yesterday as of the time of recording.
Yeah, and even albums that could have been interesting to talk about just weren't. Like Five Finger Death Punch, like spoiler alert, I was going to try and do a quiz involving getting Nick to decide if two different clips are from same songs or different songs. I just couldn't be bothered to listen to the album again. And then I tried to look at the lyrics to see if there was something I could do with that, but I was just bored reading them by the second song. So, yeah. So the first classic we've got lined up was one that I wanted to put forward, and that is Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd.
I mean, if you just said that, it would have been obviously your choice.
Yeah, pretty much. Space rock group, and I prefer calling them space rock rather than prog rock because to me their sound is very distinctive.
Well, I don't think that the prog elements on this album are hugely in keeping with the prog genre of the time anyway.
Yeah, which is why I think they definitely have their own sound, which, you know, people call it space rock, and I think, yeah, it works.
Well, arguably their most critically acclaimed album, arguably.
Yeah, they've got a lot.
Yeah, 5 tracks, 45 minutes long. It's their 9th album, can you believe?
Yeah. Well, it's at this point that they were hitting their real peak in their career, which is odd really. You don't always expect it to be so late in
well, I think they released their first album in the 60s, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, which was good.
That's a good album.
Good album. And then they released a string of sort of, fine.
They were kind of
albums.
Trying to be experimental, but not really getting like the direction or the exact formula right.
And then Syd Barrett had to leave because of him having a mental breakdown, which is very important to know for this album.
Very important.
And then they released Medal, which people sort of, ooh.
It's like, ooh, this is different. This is something.
And then another one which no one remembers, and then they released Dark Side of the Moon after that, I believe.
Yeah,
Anyway, so this is the ninth studio album, released in 1975.
Yeah, and can I just say, on a note from Dark Side of the Moon, that was such a critically acclaimed album that this had a lot to live up to, really. And it managed to do so while being a completely different album at the same time.
My dad hates this album. He thinks that Shine On You Crazy Diamond is one of the most overrated songs ever written.
Oh, no. Me and your dad are going to have to get into a fight then because... well, let's talk about Shine On You Crazy Diamond because it's split into... You've got like parts 1 to 5 as they're called at the start of the album, and then parts 6 to 9 closing.
Joe, as being someone who has read my list of the top 100 songs objectively that I have in my iTunes library... which is a little bit outdated now, you will remember that Shine On You Crazy Diamond parts 1 to 5 came in, I think, 50th place.
Yeah, it was on the list. It's fantastic because this album is in part dedicated to Syd Barrett, about the members of the band feeling like they've lost someone, even though, he didn't die. This album is very much about mourning the loss of someone that they used to have in their lives.
The way I sort of saw it is that it's throughout all of the tracks, even though they sort of vary in how they use this theme, it's about a loss of camaraderie. I remember reading that, I think it was Roger Waters said that it was about the fact that the camaraderie that the band used to have felt like it was waning at the point that they made this album. And I mean, that does carry on into the other tracks, but for now, let's talk about the opener.
Well, the opener, I love it because it starts off with this soft synths and ambience and Gilmour's iconic contemplative guitar.
I mean, Gilmour's one of if not the greatest guitarist ever. I think not necessarily in terms of technical ability, but as far as compositional and performance goes,
Well, you can feel it in his
there
playing.
there's never a single note wasted in what he does. Every note hits perfectly.
Yeah.
There's not much else to say.
Not much more to say. Well, other than the keyboard playing as well is still great, because I noticed around 6:13 you've got these synth keyboard sounds coming in, but still they manage to sound just as mournful. And you've got
I love the synths on this album.
oh, they're fantastic.
I mean, I
we'll
feel
talk about Welcome to the Machine a bit later on,
well,
but
I think that like the focus of the album in general, besides obviously David Gilmour's guitar playing, is very much based around texture rather than melody or rhythm, and the synthesizers are key to that.
oh, definitely.
They're able to add very specific moods to each piece.
Yeah, and just on the point about texture, I just think that Pink Floyd's space rock style works so well with this aura, this feeling of mourning as well, because you've got these very slow harmonic rhythms, very rich homophonic textures that it allows a certain degree of ambience and mood setting, but also a lot of melody as well. And it's lovely. And I love about the first track, Shine On You Crazy Diamond, parts 1 to 5. You don't hear any words until like 8.5 minutes into the track, but you've got all this mood, you've got all this atmosphere, all this melody, and it's so gorgeous. It doesn't need words until it gets to that point where it feels like
It's so well paced up to that point. It's like, and when his vocals come in, they one thing I love about Roger Waters is his voice is sort of somewhat underwhelming. You know, he's not an amazing singer, but he always has such conviction in how he sings
definitely.
that you can't help but love his voice. And I think that definitely helps on this track because, let's be honest, there's a lot of hyperbole in his lyrics, referring to Syd Barrett as a martyr, for example.
Yeah.
But as long as we believe that he has this belief, I don't care.
it has that conviction.
Yeah. He's so clearly his hero.
But even with a bit of hyperbole, I still just like the lyrics. Come on, you target for faraway laughter. Come on, you stranger, you legend, you martyr, and shine.
Yeah,
There's so
that's
much
great.
authenticity.
But the thing
in
that I noticed is going back to the theme of camaraderie around the tracks and this sense of camaraderie and how it used to be and how it's fallen apart. It sort of strikes me that he's remembering better days and he's remembering he's got these positive memories of Barrett. And I don't know how much you've looked into the recording process of this album, but there's the famous moment when Syd Barrett came into the studio overweight, eyebrows and head shaved, and they didn't recognise him for a good 45 minutes. And I think if that doesn't just speak volumes to the theme of this album, how the camaraderie used to be there and isn't there anymore, then I don't know what would.
I can only imagine that moment of realisation was so painful.
And he didn't even realise that the song Shine On You Crazy Diamond, which they were recording at the time, was about him.
Yeah.
Wow.
The pain translates through to the album. I mean, just to finish talking about Shine On You Crazy Diamond, that saxophone at the end. Oof.
It's very good.
Fantastic touch.
Well,
Okay.
that's...
Which track should we talk about next?
While I think that Shine On You Crazy Diamond is... the first 5 parts is the best they have to offer on the album. I think that my favourite track is Have a Cigar.
Oh, that's my least favourite.
I
go on.
love Have a Cigar. I love the sort of slow groove of it, and I think that David Gilmour's solo on it is him at his best. The only time I can think of him doing a better solo is Comfortably Numb, which isn't on this album.
We call it the Riding the Gravy Train.
And I love the lyrics to that song, and I think that I wish I'd written it down because I can't remember, but the guest vocalist on that song does an excellent job. And I loved the line, by the way, which one's pink? I can just imagine the frustration of meeting the music production fat cats, having them say that joke repeatedly, and ugh.
Yeah, for me, Have a Cigar just seems more standard rock than what Pink Floyd are able to give, and for me, it just doesn't give as much as the other songs.
Comes at a great point in the album after the sprawling epic of Shine On You Crazy Diamond, followed by this sort of machine-like Welcome to the Machine. It feels a lot more loose, which I like.
It's a lot more loose and down to earth, but perhaps that's why. It doesn't resonate so much with me because...
You're not saying it's a bad track, though,
I'm going to
take as a win.
It's not a bad track, but for me, Welcome to the Machine is the best track Pink Floyd has ever done. Easily their best track. I love that track so much. It's one of those tracks that does give me some kind of butterflies inside. Well, butterflies inside thinking about it, but not listening to it, because listening to it, that gives me shivers. The droney bass line that's kind of, it's just like working its way under the textures mechanically. And the choice of synth sounds are so perfect. They're both eerie, they're industrial, they're mechanical, and they seem to come in at unexpected points sometimes just to send the right shiver down your spine. And it relates to the lyrics of the song like so well, because the lyrics, they're not very concrete, they're very abstract, but that works well for the meaning of the song, because the machine isn't a literal machine. It's not even, you couldn't even quite call it like a figurative machine in as much as it's not directly about the music industry, even though it is. It's about the concept of a machine and how machines work, and how things like the music industry or society in general become mechanic and lose those elements of feeling. And so when you're having this music played which is devoid of this emotion but still so great at engaging emotions at the same time, it's just mind-blowing. It's brilliant. It's an absolute stroke of genius.
To put forward a slightly less in-depth and metaphorical point as you've just put forward, something I noticed for the first time on Welcome to the Machine is actually Nick Mason's drumming throughout the entire album is completely pitch perfect, and I love how restrained his drumming style is on the album. Like with David Gilmour's guitar solos, everything is exactly where it needs to be, and even the drum fills that he puts into certain parts, entirely restrained and restricted so as not to overwhelm any of the other parts of the track. He never draws attention to himself, and yet at the same time he doesn't disappear into the background.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think the keyboard solos are amazing and kind of do the same thing. They're not overly dramatic or too in your face or even too technical. It's just the right notes in the right place to give you that moment of electricity to make the Frankenstein's monster alive. So,
We've got to talk about the title track now. Wish You Were Here is just gorgeous.
Wish You Were Here is a lovely song. And that's because after you've got these very conceptual tracks like Welcome to the Machine and Shine On You Crazy Diamond, you've got Have a Cigar, which kind of brings it a bit more down to earth, and then Wish You Were Here is then like right down on the centre of earth, seeing the raw emotion. It's almost like this album is a descent into really finding the root of the emotions that the band members are going through.
And it really shows through in Waters' vocals on that track.
Oh, yeah.
I think that by far it's his best performance on the album. Wish You Were Here.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
It's the nicest song to listen to on the album, if that makes sense. It's the one that, I mean, Shine On You Crazy Diamond, part 1 to 5 is great, but it's also, it's 12 minutes long. So while I do think that that's sort of more emotionally resonant, Wish You Were Here, I feel like is a sort of more concise little tied up in string package.
Yeah, and I think this album benefits from that a lot. I think it benefits from having all these different perspectives going on, really.
Well, let's talk about Shine On You Crazy Diamond parts 6 to 9, and I'm about to really piss you off, Joe.
Don't you dare, Nick.
This album is perfect up until the last 5 minutes for me, because I believe that the motif that is brought back in the second half of Shine On You Crazy Diamond, where the chorus comes back in the form of the guitar melody doing the vocal part, which is, it's done once before on the first half. It comes back in, you think, we're going to get the chorus again. And it comes in and you get the Shine On You Crazy Time. And it's great. And then the song just carries on for another 5 minutes without bringing anything I think is particularly new or exciting or interesting or even necessary. And I'm left feeling a little bit let down because that chorus coming in is a moment of musical euphoria for me. I absolutely love it. It reminds me of Yes is Closer to the Close to the Edge, where at the end of this 19-minute epic, the chorus comes in one last time, but with that extra, descent in the vocal melody, and that's my favourite moment in music ever. And it's sort of similar here, but that's where the album should end.
See, I actually quite like the keyboard sections towards the end of the song, so...
I mean, I don't think
point
they're
of
bad,
disagreement,
but
but
I don't think they're bad. But if they were going to put them in, which I don't think they necessarily needed to, I would have liked it to have been before they brought back that motif one last time.
Okay.
So that's,
Okay.
I mean, it pains me to say it, because I do think the rest of the album is pretty much perfect.
Yeah, well, I think Shine On You Crazy Diamond, parts 6 to 9 is a fantastic way to close the album, personally. I love the screaming guitar solos that come earlier on. I love the reprisal of motifs from the starting track. It kind of bookends the album quite nicely. I thought it was a great closer, personally.
Like, I knew you would. That's why I thought it would piss you off that I had that opinion. So that, unfortunately, does detract a bit from my opinion of the album. I'll stop talking now, Joe.
I think what's interesting for me about this album is that this album just gets better and better with every time I listen to it. I first listened to Pink Floyd when I was about 16 years old, I want to say. And when I first listened to Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon was my favourite. And I didn't really care for much of their work after that for some reason. And then when I revisited their work when I was about 21, Animals was my favourite. But now I've recently revisited like their discography over the past few weeks, and now I think this one's my favourite. The only moment that I think is not as good as the others is Have a Cigar, but other than that, this album is pretty much perfect, and I love it.
Well, I'm happy for you, Joe. I mean, I just want to mention as well that the music review website that I use most is Sputnik Music, which people give scores to albums and then it averages out that score from all of these different people. And Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here is currently the highest rated on the website.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's got to speak to how much people love this album, I guess.
And I think it deserves the acclaim. I think it does. The songwriting is amazing. The arrangements are amazing. The different points of view, the perspectives, and kind of the story and the trajectory of the album is great. I give this a super strong 9 out of 10. Might as well be a 10 out of 10 kind of rating.
I'd give it a light 9, just because I think the last 5 minutes could have been cut.
Okay.
But like the stronger side of light 9.
Stronger side. 9.37.
Yeah, like a 9.37. It's a great album.
Yeah.
It honestly is.
Okay. Let's stop talking about one great album and talk about another great album.
I'm glad that you started talking by saying another great album, because you hadn't really listened to this coming album before, had you?
No, I think when you mentioned this, I was thinking, is this the Smashing Pumpkins record I've listened to? Because I've only listened to one Smashing Pumpkins record before, and I remember thinking, I don't. I can take or leave this. I think it might have been either their debut or what is it,
Melancholy and the Infinite
Sadness.
I know Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness has a huge amount of acclaim from people. I don't think it's a particularly amazing album. It's got some amazing tracks on it. 1979, I think, is the best song that the band has ever done, and it's got Tonight Tonight, which I think is just lovely. But no, Siamese Dream for me is their best album.
Yeah.
Their sophomore album from Smashing Pumpkins, alt-rock band, released in 1993, 62 minutes, 13 tracks long, and combining it's all manner of styles of music, varying from dream pop to metal to bits of prog to bits of shoegaze.
It's got it all a bit sprinkled in, but no, I didn't know if I was going to like it going into it, and it left me surprised in a good way, shall I say? And I really enjoyed my time with this album.
Well, I think it's another album which it's necessary to know the background to it to fully appreciate it. So just quickly, I'll read this little extract from Wikipedia, which is that drummer Jimmy Chamberlin was undergoing an increasingly severe addiction to heroin. Guitarist James Iha and bassist Darcy Retsky had recently ended a romantic relationship, and Billy Corgan, frontman, aside from battles with weight gain and suicidal depression, was suffering from his worst ever bout of writer's block. And I mean, it sounds like the log line for a film, doesn't
Yeah.
it? It reminds me of Rumours by Fleetwood Mac in the way that the album that is most critically acclaimed by both bands was made during a time of immense pressure and turmoil for the band themselves. I'm pretty sure Billy Corgan actually spent the entirety of the writing process fantasizing about his own death.
It does come across in some of the songs.
I mean, he from reports went through his sort of Stanley Kubrick stage and unleashed his inner tyrannical perfectionist over the recording process. Apparently, he overlaid a lot of his parts onto, like he played a lot of the bass lines over the top of the ones that Darcy had done, for example. And he wrote nearly all of the songs. I think James Iha had a couple of writing credits. I think the thing that I love about this album the most is the sense of sonic depth that you get from it. And it's achieved not through the use of excessive reverb or delay to sort of create that atmospheric effect. It's used through just the sheer amount of overlay on the instruments. It's like looking at the producer's notes that some tracks had over 100 guitar parts overlaid onto each other and compressed together. So you get this just immense sound on some of the tracks with...
Yeah, well, I'll just highlight an early highlight for me, and that's Quiet, the second track.
Quiet is wonderful.
Oh, it's so meaty and raw,
Yeah.
and that riff just... I mean, it's a great riff to start off with. Just... And it's so pummeling, and... Now that you've said that they overlaid so many instruments, I can definitely understand now why it sounded just so dense.
Yeah, I mean, even coming before that, even just starting on the opening track, Cherub Rock, it's instantly clear how much talent there is from the band members. I think with Jimmy Chamberlain on drums and Billy Corgan on guitar particularly standing out, because I think... Oh my god, Jimmy Chamberlain's drum performances on this album is such a standout. He brings such advanced but not overcomplicated grooves to each of the track, very much relying on the ride cymbal, and he knows exactly how to use his toms for drum fills. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a little bit... Ooh. And
getting the tingles.
Billy Corgan's guitar solos, I think, David Gilmour, like I said earlier, best guitarist of all time, possibly. Billy Corgan's guitar solos on this album are absolutely insane for me.
Yeah.
I love every single one of them.
Well, you just make me want to...
He does it by condensing this really frantic fretwork into little short blasts in the faster tracks and sort of piecing them together, so it doesn't feel like he's, just wanking over a guitar or anything. It feels very precise. I think the standout for me being Geek USA.
That is nearly my favourite track on the album.
The guitar solo in that is
the guitar
so good.
it's so wild,
Yeah.
but it matches the intensity of the riffs so well.
Yeah.
It's a great interplay between the two parts.
I would argue that's also the best track for drumming on the album as well. The drum fills in that are so precise and insane.
Yeah.
Oof. Well, going back to talking about how they overlaid so many guitars onto each other, something that really surprised me about the album, listening to it again, is when I realised how good the mixing is on the album, because there are a lot of parts where the songs dynamically shift from, loud crunching like guitars and fast sections into Geek USA again, as an example. The bridge in it is so quiet in comparison to the rest of the song, and the way it transitions from loud to quiet is some of the most effective I can think of in music.
It's brilliant.
The dynamic shift is insanely good, and as far as mixing goes, like, this album, I think production wise is really good for the time it was released.
Well, it's great, especially considering it's it does have that focus on heavy writing as well, and to get those dynamics right is
something I noticed in Geek USA in the bridge is the way that this guitar comes in very gentle, and it sort of rises up rather than the note hits and then it fades away. It fades up into each note, but the way it does it is one note will come and then the exact same note will come underneath it, rising up and end just slightly later, so you get this doubled effect without using delay. I haven't described that very well at all, but when I noticed it, I was thinking, wow, this must have taken so long to get right. It sort of fits with the lyrics about the Siamese twins in that verse as well.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to give you some
Okay.
time to talk.
Well, I've kind of got one criticism which you probably won't like, which kind of springboards off the your point about the mixing and the dynamics between some of the sections. There were one or two tracks on the album where I felt like I wanted them to embrace their softer songwriting a little bit more. I suppose the most prominent example is Summer, because the softer sections in that song are so textured, they're so melodic and they're so lovely, but then when the heavier sections come in on that song, they just sound super generic.
I will say I do like Summer, but it is my least favourite track on the album. So
I mean, it's not a bad track, but I do think there is a couple of moments on this album where their heavier sections feel a little bit tired. I mean, that's only really the case on Summer and probably Hummer as well, because I love the
Hummer's
warp.
my second least favourite. So.
Because the thing is, I love that electronic warped riff that comes in at the beginning, but then when the guitars come in, it almost feels like a heavier but dumbed down version of it, which just didn't really do anything for me. But the thing is, when they incorporate the softness well, is some of the best tracks on the album. Like we mentioned, Geek USA does that incredibly well. Another favourite of mine, Silverfuck, I think is a fantastic track. And there's this part where it drops down and it's just this bass and drums, and it's so ominous. And
Yeah.
on a lesser track like Summer, like they would have brought the guitars in a lot sooner than they did. They allow Silverfuck to build the ominousness.
So much room to breathe in that track, and I'm surprised they managed to sustain it for so long without it growing tiresome. I mean, it lasts a good 5 minutes or so, and it's wonderful.
It's wonderful, and they build it up just so nicely so that at the end you've got all the catharsis that the song wants to have. And
Yeah, when it does come back in with the insanely strong drum patterns and the heavy guitar and Corgan's yelling, it's so euphoric.
It's great.
And my favourite thing is at the end of the track you can hear Corgan shout, "Okay, next time play it like you don't give a fuck." I'm like, well, what did you just do?
Yeah, so that's another highlight for me.
I'll talk about some standout songs now, I guess, because
Okay, yeah.
I barely mentioned them. Opening track Cherub Rock has got one of my favourite guitar solos ever in it, and I think it's arguably one of the strongest opening tracks I can think of on any album. Quiet, we've already mentioned.
I love Quiet.
The guitar solos in that are fantastic as well. Today is, I mean...
We're just going to go through the track.
I mean, our first three tracks I think are...
Yeah,
just,
I love Today as well.
Today is, I mean, it's depressing but beautiful. If you aren't listening to the lyrics carefully, you could easily misunderstand what the song is about.
Let me just read these lyrics out. Pink ribbon scars that never forget. I tried so hard to cleanse these regrets. My angel wings were bruised and restrained. My belly stings. And the first time I listened to this song, I didn't pick up on the lyrics. I was thinking, oh, that's a happy guitar riff. That's, it seems like quite a jovial song. But then when you get the lyrics and that affects the mood of the song, it becomes something else, and it's another favourite.
And it's another example of how good the dynamic shifts are on the album, because when it transitions from that, guitar, the intro has the guitar by itself playing quite a simple melody, and then the guitars and the drums and the bass come in, and it's so in your face, but so joyous as well. I don't know. Disarm, I think, is a fantastic song about his depression. I love the strings on that track. They never feel trite or mawkish.
It might be tied with the other tracks, but I do think Disarm might just be my favourite on the album. I think that's because it did come after two tracks that aren't quite as good as the other tracks. I'm not, like I said, Hummer isn't my favourite. Rocket didn't do an awful lot for me.
I think Rocket's a good song, but I mean, one of my issues with this album is that there are so many really strong tracks that sometimes I just want to get to them.
Yeah. I get it.
It's a bit of a weird complaint now that I think about it.
Yeah, but yeah, Disarm is fantastic. I love the bells as well, and
it's so lovely.
It's so dense, and it doesn't really feel out of place at all. It seems to carry the same ominousness.
The changes in styles between each song flow really well. It's really surprising to me, because you wouldn't expect a song like Quiet to be on the same album as a song like Disarm, but they work. We've already
Yeah.
mentioned Geek USA and Silverfuck, so I'm just going to mention my favourite song on the album, which we haven't actually talked about yet, which is Mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Mayonnaise fills me with so much joy. I don't know if you'll remember, but this was also on my list of
Yeah.
top songs.
It was like 75 or something like
the
that.
lyrics to it are so non-specific, but at the same time I feel like they could apply to so many situations in life. I think Corgan's performance on it is wonderful. Corgan doesn't have a naturally amazing voice, but like Waters, he sings with so much conviction to what he's saying.
I really like his singing, though. He has this unique
Yeah.
style of being both soft but intense at the same time, which, it serves the album really well.
It's just a really cathartic track for me, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why it's a fan favourite. It's easy to hear. And it's got another trademark Corgan wonderful solo on it.
I will say it's probably not my favourite on the album, but I do like it. I can see why it is popular, so great track.
I just want to say one other little quibble I have with the album, which is that it's too long.
It is.
It's
62 minutes, and
it does a good job of, getting through the 62 minutes without feeling too long. But I think after Silverfuck, which has that really extended quiet leading up into the big finish, you'd expect that to be the end of the album. But then there are two more tracks after it, which, I like both of them. In fact, I think that they're two really good songs, actually. But
well, I agree with Luna.
The placing of them on the album, it just feels a bit weird to me.
I mean, I really like the closing track, Luna.
Luna's amazing.
Sweet.
I mean, it's only a minute long. It's a bit more of an interval track.
I kind of wanted it to become a bit more of a developed song, I think. And I think considering this album is long, I think it would have been a smarter choice to have either developed it and made it something a bit more concrete towards the end of the album, or just not had it as a song.
I mean, I can easily understand why this was one of the most acclaimed albums of the 90s. It's really good.
Well, yeah. And something that I just found interesting listening to it, not having listened to the Smashing Pumpkins before, is just hearing the genetics of the album as well, and how I can think of several bands that definitely have been influenced by this kind of sound. Especially, bands coming, post-grunge, going into the late 90s. So, yeah, it's a great album with a lot of great songs on it.
It's one that I find myself coming back to a lot as well. Since my iPod broke again, I've been having to use my phone to listen to music, which has much less space on it, so I have to pick and choose. And I mean, this was a while ago before I even thought about the fact we'd be doing this for the podcast. It's just sort of been on my phone. Yeah. Amongst like 3 or 4 other albums. It's just there, just so I can listen to it, because I do like coming back to this album. I highly recommend it to anyone. Yeah. And if you don't, it's easy to forget why Billy Corgan became a famous name, because nowadays he's a bit of a twat, to be honest. I suppose it's a bit like the Smiths, really, in that sense. We all know what I think of Morrissey.
Okay. I think we should move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so just final thoughts on rating. I think this is a great album. I just think maybe a couple of tracks could have been cut that aren't as strong or don't keep the momentum going. So I think this album, I'd happily put it, I suppose, similar to something like The Bends by Radiohead, which I said was like a strong 8, light 9.
Yeah, I'd feel the same. Probably more edging towards that light 9 for me. But I don't know why. I do get the sort of similarities between the Bends and this in a way, even though they're not alike particularly.
Well, I think Pablo Honey, I think Radiohead were definitely influenced by a band like the Smashing... Can't speak.
The Splashing Pumpkins.
The Splashing Bumpkins.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great album, great alternative rock album. Because I don't think... Would you really call this a grunge album?
No. Wouldn't call this a grunge album at all.
Because
I think it strays. I think it's like building off. It's building off certain grunge archetypes, but I think it very much is its own album.
It's like calling "Wish You Were Here" a prog rock album, I suppose.
Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, great album.
2 classic albums. Highly recommend them both.
Yes, indeed. And now we're going to do something a little bit more different, I think.
Yeah, I still don't really know why we're doing this, but...
I thought it could be fun.
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 Well, remember your idea of fun is Rockstar by Nickelback. So we're going to go to that all-important milestone of human achievement, which is Buzzfeed. And we're going to we're going to do one of their trademark quizzes with questions that have nothing to do with what the quiz is apparently about.
What genre of music actually matches your personality?
Now,
by Kelly Dunlap.
This is going to be wrong.
We'll see.
Straight up.
We'll see.
I predict that this will be wrong.
I predict that prog rock probably isn't even an answer. I might get something like jazz, I'll accept it.
Okay.
Alternative rock, I'll accept it. Electronica, I'll accept it. We'll see. So the first question is which
emoji do you use the most?
And we've got
choices are...
Okay, we've got a flame emoji. We've got like a sweating face, anxious
just like,
emoji. We've got painting your fingernails.
We've got the one which is winking with its tongue out. You got the turd emoji.
Yeah,
the sort of
sarcastic face,
sarcastic
sideways
face,
glance,
sort of sideways. Yeah, sort of lip curled up to the right. You got hands clapping. You got the sunglasses emoji, and you've got the cat which is crying,
laughing.
Or laughing, yeah, I suppose.
So I'm torn between the cat and the sideways glance, personally.
I'm going to go for the anxious one.
Fair enough. To be honest, I do laugh more than I do sideways glance, so I'm picking the cat.
Okay.
I'm picking the cat.
Next, you've got Pick a Guilty Pleasure song. Who Let the Dogs Out by the Baha Men. Nookie by Limp Bizkit. All Star by Smash Mouth. Don't Stop Believing by Journey. Hold On by Wilson Phillips, All Night Long, open brackets, All Night, close brackets by Lionel Richie, Since You Been Gone by Kelly Clarkson, Somebody That I Used to Know by Gautier, or Baby by Justin Bieber. I mean, some of these aren't even guilty pleasures for me. I'll straight up say that I do like Don't Stop Believing, and I think that All Star is actually, for its genre, is a pretty good song.
It's a good song, I mean... it's certainly lasted long.
I think I'm going to go for All Star by Smash Mouth, actually.
If you've listened to our podcast about the worst songs part 1, I do actually like Who Let the Dogs Out by the Baha. So I'm going to click that. Which musical act is the most overrated? Joe is going to choose Taylor Swift. I immediately see Taylor Swift. I click it and think, let me see what the others are. So we got Drake, we got the Beatles, of course we got Taylor Swift, we've got Dixie Chicks, we've got Michael Jackson, got U2, we've got Beyonce, we've got Daft Punk, and we've got Sam Smith. And of course, I have clicked Taylor Swift 10 seconds ago.
For me, I think I'm probably going to have to go for U2.
Fair enough.
Personally, I don't hate their music, but I don't think that... I mean, even songs from the Joshua Tree, which I know that people think is great, I've always thought, it's fine.
Yeah. Respectable choice. Respectable.
Moving on, pick an iPod. It's going to be quite hard to describe these. You've got various classics, nanos, touches from various different generations. I'm going to go for my trusty iPod Classic.
I'm going to pick the one that looks like my one, and I have no idea what make it is. It's just the silver one that looks a little bit bulky, but not too bulky. See, it's like 64 gigs.
I like the 160 gigabyte one, so I can always have what music I need. I've never really got the touch ones. Having apps on your iPod, I never really got.
I know, you might as well have a phone. Yeah. It's like I like having something separate to have my music on.
What's your idea of a perfect night? Dinner and a movie, karaoke, drinks with friends, video games, camping, a quiet bubble bath, yoga, endless Netflix marathons, or clubbing. There isn't lying on your bed face down wishing for the end here.
Listening to Grace by Jeff Buckley.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure what to pick. The closest one to that probably is...
Netflix marathons?
Possibly. I don't know. Okay. The picture for the quiet bubble bath, she looks like she's covering her ears and like in pain. Like, I imagine that standing next to her, just out of view, is someone screaming.
It does look like she could have headphones on that she's covering.
You shouldn't have headphones in a bath.
I know you shouldn't.
That's dangerous.
You shouldn't, but, you know, this is BuzzFeed.
I'm going to go for dinner and a movie because, you know, I'm a film student and I like food.
Okay. Well... I think I'm just going to have to do a process of elimination. It's not going to be dinner and a movie.
It's not going to be yoga.
It's not going to be yoga. I do not sing in public, so it's not going to be karaoke. Do I look like I drink alcohol? Could be video games. Probably not a quiet bubble bath. I don't have time to have endless Netflix marathons, and it's definitely not clubbing.
So video games by process of elimination.
Although camping looks fun, and I do like that. I love fire. I love a good fire. And there's a picture of a fire that I'm clicking camping. Clicking camping.
Pick a pet. Dog, dog, parrot, cat, goldfish, bunny, snake, weird dog, pig, or Tamagotchi.
Did you just call an iguana a weird dog?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's got to be cat.
I'm torn.
I don't even have to think about that one. That one's cat.
I'm not usually a dog person, but that puppy is
That is
adorable.
a very, very cute puppy. It's got the Puss in Boot eyes as well. Aww. It's looking at you like, please pick me, Joe. I promise I'll listen to Sheena Ringo with you.
And it would as well. But that bunny is so cute. And and I love parrots as well. I'm torn between the bunny and but the cat is lovely as well.
I like parrots, but I don't like the idea of keeping birds indoors.
Okay, you've swayed me. I'll pick the bunny rabbit this time.
It is a very sweet bunny. What's your signature dance move, Joe?
Grinding. No, the options are air guitar, grinding, jazz hands, the head bob, pelvic thrusts, shimmying, finger pointing, moonwalk, and body. What's body rolling? Is that?
It's where you curl up in a ball and you just sort of roll down a hill.
That sounds like
fun,
actually.
They haven't got the one where you sort of put yourself flat foot on one foot, tips of your toe on the other, moving your foot back and forth while you wave your arms to the side. That's my signature dance move because I can't really do anything else.
What's the closest to that?
Closest to that is probably
shimmying.
I don't know particularly. I don't know what finger pointing is either.
That
doesn't strike me as a dance move.
That strikes me as rather rude.
I'm going to go for the head bob.
Considering people don't ever catch me dancing unless it is playing an air instrument, I'm going to have to pick air guitar.
Okay, and what have you got?
What? I'm not country.
Oh, Joe.
You're a work hard, play hard kind of person, and country is a work hard, play hard kind of genre.
Guess what I got, Joe?
What?
You got indie.
Okay.
You're cerebral, you're obsessive, and you love to be challenged. In short, you're the quintessential indie fan. I don't know.
Okay,
what definition of indie are you going for? Are you going for independent label, or are you going for the, Pigeon Detectives, Wombats, Block Party type of indie?
It's BuzzFeed, so the latter.
Yeah, I don't really feel like that description matches it. Though they do have a picture of, I think, St. Vincent, which is interesting.
Okay.
I'll take that. I like St. Vincent.
I don't know who this country artist is.
That looks like someone from The Only Way is Essex. Not that I've ever seen The Only Way is Essex. It's what I imagine someone from The Only Way is Essex to look like.
They look very city for a country artist, not going to lie.
Well, don't you know that all of the best country artists come from the city and have never touched dirt in their lives?
Justin Timberlake.
Yeah. Good point. Well, now we've proven that I have better music taste than you have. I mean, it's official now. It's canon to this podcast. You like country music.
No, I'm going to have to start listening to Dolly Parton. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk
about something that is a bit different to what we normally talk about, which is a live performance, because Joe and I do occasionally go out.
I left my house.
Joe and I, on the Monday of this week, on the 21st of May, went to the Kitchen Garden Cafe in Birmingham to see Lisa Knapp, who is a folk musician. Quite an eccentric one, I would say, as far as the genre goes. I think she had, five different rather unorthodox instruments on stage that she was using.
She had the violin and viola, which was standard.
Quite standard. She
had the dulcimer.
And
then she had the harmonium.
And a mini harp.
And So, and she was great on all of them.
She really was. The performance was lovely. It's in this little tiny venue, probably not hugely bigger than my bedroom.
I was trying to guess how many seats there were, and I would have said about 40, 40 maybe, seats. About that, and quite tightly.
Yeah, very tight. She was very much in the corner of a room. It wasn't really a stage, more of a floor.
Yeah. Can I just say, I hope they wiped their seats down afterwards, because I think my shirt was stuck to the chair every time I got up.
One problem was it was one of the hottest days of the year, and that many people in close proximity. Yeah, it was very uncomfortable in that sense. But I really liked the atmosphere. It felt very suited to her music.
It was dainty, like they had the fairy lights as well above, which was nice touch, and they also had the red and green, which did make it look a little bit like a Christmas tree, but it was nice.
And they served ginger beer.
Yes.
Ginger beer is the best drink.
Yes.
We can agree on that.
Yeah.
Well, Lisa Knapp, if you've never listened to her music, if you like sort of eccentric, sort of singer-songwriter, very folk-influenced, quite traditional in a sense, but also very much not.
Well, when you first introduced her to me, you said her singing style was somewhat similar to Björk. Yeah. Probably because I love Björk, and that's one way to get.
I do think that, to be fair.
And when listening to her sing, I can kind of hear that similarity, but I also think her voice is very authentically her own as well.
Yeah, and she has the voice of an angel.
Oh, she does. I told her that when I left.
Yeah. You sort of walked past and went, "You have the voice of an angel!" Ah! And you ran. You sprinted out the door.
Yeah. I barely gave her a chance to respond.
No. Well, I think that her performance was a good length for a start. It had an interval in the middle, which was very welcome because that was so hot.
It gave us a chance to stand outside for a little bit.
But she really utilised every instrument on stage. There wasn't a single instrument that she only used for like one song. It didn't ever feel like it was a bit of a gimmick that she was using that instrument.
Yeah, even if an instrument was used a bit more sparingly, like the dulcimer, one song was with the hammer, and the other was using it was strummed like a guitar. So she worked in a lot of variety as well, which was great.
And she was very proficient at all of the instruments. I loved how she was playing the harmonium, because even if the song she was playing on it had quite loose rhythm, the fact that she was having to use the pedals to operate it in no particular time, the fact that she was not getting swayed by that, not falling out of time, is very impressive.
Yeah, that's another note I put down, is that she was so great at controlling her voice, her melodies, and what she was doing with her singing so separately from her instruments. She was getting different dynamics and different, and operating under different rhythms, really, which I thought it showed that she was a seasoned performer, really.
And it was
came through.
So brave of her to do a 10-minute long vocal-only piece as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that was truly enchanting to be a part of.
It was brilliant.
I slightly, almost maybe shed a tear at the final line of that song, where she said, "And her heart broke into three." Oh
no.
There's definitely a fantastic performer, fantastic musician as well. I highly recommend you check out any of her albums. Her latest one came out last year, and it's called Till April is Dead, a Garland of May, which is full of songs about the season May.
And that's what the performance was largely based around.
Largely based around those songs. She gave a lovely introduction at the beginning, explaining why she'd chosen to do that and how prominent the season of May is in the folk tradition.
Well, I loved that. I loved those little tidbits of information. I wasn't expecting to get them, but they were really nice knowing about the Padstone, the festival that goes on there, and how the earliest piece of literature was about some church guy telling the monks not to disgrace themselves. Like it was all interesting, and it all felt relevant as well, rather than
and I loved
tangential.
The way she used the loop pedal as well on certain tracks, like on Till April is Dead. She has these little vocal samples she feeds into it, saying like "Till April is Dead," whatever, and then playing them over the top of her singing at various intervals. It all fit really well. I was really impressed with how she managed to do that. Yeah,
and she used those pedals as well to layer up some violin ambience as well in just the loveliest way. It's just great.
Yeah, fantastic performance. Would love to see it again. Would love to see her again. It's the only time I'd seen her before was at the Moseley Folk Festival, where she had 3 other people on stage with her, and she could do her sort of bigger songs.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, she couldn't do here, but she managed very well without them.
Well, she filled the room perfectly well with just her voice and whatever instrument she was playing at the time. I mean, it wasn't a huge room to fill, but she did.
Did I mention she's got one of my favourite voices? I feel like I did.
And her voice didn't hit a wrong note.
No.
It didn't. It was
just wonderful.
It was great.
That's it. It's so good.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
I was just looking through my notes stuff. Yeah, we already mentioned Voice of an Angel.
Well, I'll also say that on the Sunday, the day before, I went and saw Scott Matthews, who is a singer-songwriter, also folk-influenced musician from the Black Country, where Joe is currently living. He was playing in St. Paul's Church in Birmingham city centre, and he was, one of the best. I've seen him, I think, 5 times now, and I think that was the best. His voice is so gorgeous. He's got wonderful stage banter as well. And a little story, which is that I don't really cry at art, music, film, video games. I can count 2 times where I have prior to the performance last night, one of which was Jaws when I was 10 and I never went in the sea for a good long time after that. But no, he was playing one of the songs off his new album on that night, and I cried, which is something that doesn't happen often.
By contrast, I'm a big crybaby when it comes to music.
I wish I could cry to music. I really do, because I feel like I'm missing out. I do sometimes, I get that feeling like I should be crying.
Yeah, I must just have some very weak tear ducts. Something like that.
Well, that'll quickly lead into shout-outs, because much to my disappointment, I realised that I'd actually missed one of his releases, which came out at the end of April. I would have loved to talk about it on the podcast, but I missed it, and now I can only say it as a shout-out, because I've been listening to it over the last week, and I think it's like all his other albums. It's gorgeous. I don't think it's his best work, but that's because Home Part 1 is really good. But it does have a track on it called Cinnamon, which is vying for my spot of favourite song of the year at the moment. So well done, Scott Matthews.
Ooh.
Good for you.
Yeah, I'll have to listen to it.
Joe, do you want to say anything about Five Finger Death Punch?
No. I already said what I wanted to say earlier on.
I don't have any other albums I've really listened to this week, to be honest.
They're not good. Neither have I.
There hasn't been anything I've wanted to.
I've been trying to listen to this Sheena Ringo tribute album, but apparently it's not being released outside of Japan, and that's made me very sad.
Well, I guess you'll just have to bring Sheena Ringo to the UK yourself.
Yeah, I did prepare a few words. So Sheena Ringo announced her semi-retirement from music, and for those who don't know, Sheena Ringo is a Japanese songwriter who you may not have heard of, because when offered the chance, she chose not to do any work outside of Japan. But honestly, she's easily one of the most important musicians in modern Japanese music, responsible for 3 of what I think are the best experimental pop albums ever written, creating music that is honestly conceptually like no other music out there. And she's an incredibly generous songwriter as well. She's written many songs for other artists, as well as writing fantastic commercial songs for film, theme songs for Japanese TV. Like, she's all over the culture, basically. But she's announced in her semi-retirement that she's no longer going to be writing her own material. Rather that she's going to keep writing songs every now and then for TV and for other artists, and that she'll be on the directing board for Japan's 2020 Olympic opening and closing ceremonies, as she did such a good job of directing the handover from 2016 Olympic ceremonies. So that's nice. But in lieu of this, and also in lieu of the fact that it's been pretty much 20 years since she first released her first EP, several Japanese artists have banded together to make a tribute album by covering some of their favourite songs of hers. It was released, as I mentioned earlier this week, but it's not been released outside of Japan, so I'm still itching to get my ears on it. Considering she has the strongest discography of any artist over the last 20 years, it's hardly...
The National.
Considering she's had... the strongest discography of any artist over the last 20 years, it's hardly surprising but still very touching that this album has happened. And so I wanted to tribute my much less professional cover of one of her songs. And honestly, I really struggled to pick a song of hers, because so many of her songs are just so perfect and untouchable that just doing any recreation would just make a completely inferior version. But I ended up picking her song Cappuccino, which was a song that she originally gave to another artist, Rie Tomasaka, which, as a single in 1999, I think, going off memory, saw moderate success, but then in 2014, Sheena Ringo worked with Takeshi Kobayashi to make a completely revamped arrangement of the song for her 2014 album, Reimport, and my goodness, the rearrangement is absolutely magical, and even though it wasn't released as a single, it still charted on the adult alternative charts in Japan. So just before playing the song, I should just say that I couldn't find an English translation of the lyrics, so I had to get some Japanese lyrics, translate them into another Japanese alphabet, then translate them into English, and the lyrics made no sense whatsoever. The syntax was all over the place, words were all over the place. So I basically took out words and sentiments and reconstructed them into English lyrics that I can only really hope are related to the original lyrics of the song. So yeah, I hope it serves as an acceptable tribute.
When I see your face, delicate and white as a snow lily, beautiful as Titian's best, and with eyes that were blessed with the grace of flying swans returning to nest. Said see you soon. I think I'll play your favorite tune. I want to see you more than anything now. Ground coffee is spiraling, steam rises and cuts the air. When I see a ghost, I can see it smiling back down on me. Look, I made your favorite drink, decorated in pink, in the teacup with our names painted on. When I see your face, delicate and white as a snow lily, promise me that you'll take care and have fun in the air. Only think of me as someone who'll join you there. That's everywhere. I guess last night you heard my prayer and rose up from the milk that's losing to the ground coffee that's spiraling. Steam rises and cuts the air, and when I see a ghost, I can see it smiling back down on me. Look, I made your favorite drink, decorated in pink, in the teacup with our names painted on. When I see your face, delicate and white as a snow lily, promise me that you'll take care and have fun in the air. Only think of me as someone who'll join you there. And as the temperature drops, your feet, they fade away. Your hair is floating to the sky. Won't you please come back down? I'll make this cappuccino every day. If you would stay, can't you see I need you around? 'Cause when I see a ghost, I can see you smiling back down on me. Sorry that my dancing's weak, that I'm struggling to speak. Don't be the last time I ever see. When I see your face, delicate and white as a snow lily, promise me that you'll take care and have fun in the air. Only think of me as someone who'll join you there. Whoa.
There you go. Joe did the cover.
Yay.
I liked it. I thought it was really good, he says, not actually having listened to it yet. But I'm sure it will be amazing when I, put it into the recording later.
You can edit the podcast and then edit it in your own thoughts. Yeah, it was average. It was all right.
Well, let's quickly finish the podcast by saying I think we can agree all of our ducks this time round get bread.
Yes.
Good bread.
And good high quality bread.
Good high quality bread. Good old ducks. Well, we've come to the end of our podcast now. Just time to do some plugs. Joe's YouTube channel, Mr. McTidge. It's great. Check it out. Stacey's Pop Culture Parlour.
Well done.
I got it right. Stacey's great. Listen to her podcasts. She has like 18 of them.
Yeah.
And she's great.
And I think her fundraising thing is still open.
Yeah.
We'll see at the time of
our
upload.
section of her 24-hour live podcast has now been released, so you can listen to us talk about music and
hear me lose.
Yeah, Joe did terribly.
Actually, I did quite well because at the start of the round I was 10 to catch, and by the end I was 8 to catch. So that is an improvement.
You were so bad. I was so disappointed in you, Joe. Other good news, I have an electric kazoo now. Just thought I'd let everyone know. Woo! But for now, I think that's the end of all we have to say. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time. And it's my birthday today, so I'm going to go off and have some celebrations.
Happy birthday to
And that's the
Nick.
end of the podcast.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. F sharp. A sharp. Revisited.